going to be talking about the NSX Tengu, an extremely, well, not even extremely, a deadly gun if you're landing your pellets, but it's extremely unreliable and it's very hard to use. So the Tengu is an experiment where it fires at 513 RPM, but only does 50 damage per bullet. However, you shoot 4 pellets per shot. So, assuming all your pellets land within your max damage range, you're looking at 513 to 200, which is not really anything to slouch at. It's actually quite good. Most importantly, it's the only 200 damage submachine gun you can get that's not called the Gladius. Problem is, because it's pellet-based, and like such has the shotgun pellet spread mechanic, it's not that reliable. And this is ultimately its downfall. Sure, it is effective providing you are landing your shots, but as soon as you get bad pellet spread, or an enemy is just a little bit too far away, you're going to start missing pellets, and your DPS goes through the floor. So, it's a really, really unreliable gun that's really, really punishing to use. As for its other stats, 380 meters a second muzzle velocity is standard for a submachine gun. The reload speed is good at 2.5 long, 1.875 short. The ammunition is fine at 22, although a little on the low end. Your hip and aim accuracies are fine. They're fine. They're a little changed in comparison to other submachine guns, but they're still pretty normal. So, as I said, the Tengu shoots 4 pellets per shot. So, if you spray at a wall, it looks like that. Can you start to see the first problems that emerge? It's not very accurate once you get past about 10 to 15 meters. And this makes the gun extremely unreliable and extremely hard to use. In comparison with its relatively fast damage drop-off at 40 meters, this thing not only loses damage fast, but you're going to start missing quick. And it's really punishing. So for the attachments, you get your standard lineup of scopes. First, the developers only gave it to 1 to 2x's, which is fine because if you would have picked a 4x on this gun, I am severely worried for you. Please run the 1, or even run the irons, it's up to you. On the barrel, this is where the first sign of problem starts coming in. You've only got a flash sup and a sup. Take the flash sup if you don't want to commit to the suppressor, but the suppressor's fine. It's not like the gun is any good at range anyway, so the suppressor's honestly not that bad of a choice. But, you're very limited here. Onto the rail. Here you can either pick the extended mag or the hybrid laser. So, the hybrid laser basically will make the hip fire 1/3 better. It's just a third better. I should have equipped it before exiting the screen. So, it's about a third better. So, you're just a little more accurate. The problem is, this isn't a huge improvement, because you're still relying on pellet RNG to hit the target. So while it's going to make the gun a little bit more accurate while hip firing, it's not really going to save the fact that it still gets inaccurate really, really quickly, especially given that, compared to other submachine guns, it has worse hip fire stats out of the box. So, I would personally recommend the extended mag. 4 rounds is not a great amount of ammo, but it's something. It'll help. Because let's face it, you're not getting more than 1 kill a magazine anyway, you may as well give yourself a little bit of buffer room. Of course, the dark light is a trap. And you can only pick soft point here and do it. There's no reason not to. So, the Tengu is best suited to the infiltrator, although I actually did some of my own Araxium on the light assault. Basically, if you're up close, very close to your targets and you can land headshots, it puts out a lot of damage really quick. The problem is, as soon as you are not essentially face-hugging your targets, it loses a lot of damage really quick. It is currently 7:07 PM on Connery, 15 minutes to go on an OSHA alert, so, this is the situation we find ourselves in. This is, just how it goes. God, I think I've had 3 OSHA videos in a row. Ugh. Scary. So, as I say, the Tengu can kill effectively at close range. The problem is, even compared to other submachine guns, it has very limited versatility. The low fire rate means it's extremely punishing when you miss targets, especially given that you're already relying on pellets to begin with. And, because it's got a pellet-based mechanic on it, it becomes extremely unreliable extremely quickly. Sure, it is a fine SMG as long as you're within 10 meters of your target. After that, it starts to fall off pretty bad. I personally would recommend always using an aim-down sequence. The hip fire, even if you go with the hybrid laser, is just too unreliable. So I would always recommend you take the extended mag here and just primarying it, aiming down the sights. And you're going to see that, you know, it's unreliable. Yes, it is funny to laser people with the Tengu when it works, but the problem is it doesn't work very often. Admittedly, this was the developer's first foray into these pellet-based weapons, so it's not bad for a first attempt, but it's really, really unfun to use. Because, yes, you do get a 200 damage submachine gun, but the amount of luck you need to have this thing kill anything past 10 meters makes this gun extremely unreliable and ergo unfun to use. Of course, this is not a particularly great fight for this gun, because it's, you know, a bit open, a bit longer range, but as they say, it is what it is. It doesn't look like Mirror Bay's any better, because it's Osher, we only have these two fights. So, you know, that's just how the live server goes sometimes. But the Tengu is, like, as I've said, don't get me wrong, it is deadly when you can actually land headshots with it. I mean, it is still 200 damage, essentially submachine gun, provided all 4 of your pellets are landing. So, you know, if you're close and you're landing headshots, it does a lot of damage, don't get me wrong. The problem is, as I've been saying, due to its pellet spread and the fact that, you know, it does fire 4 pellets, it is an extremely unreliable 200 damage. And you are going to die with this thing in your hands, at range, or just unexpectedly, over and over and over again. Basically, the only way to effectively beat people is to either be so close to them that you can just head-click them without, like, basically guaranteeing the pellets all land, or by just positioning around them and getting the drop. Because, realistically, you're not going to win a duel against a lot of players, because of how unreliable this gun is. Honestly, was very lucky that I even managed to drop that engineer.
Better than this. Show them.
So I would argue that on the whole, this gun is not very good. Like a lot of the NSX weapons, sure, it's an interesting gimmick, it's just not very good. Of course, here we enter problem 2. If you are grinding directives, I'll be real with you, if you're going to grind the NSX core directive, you're probably going to have to do the Tengu, because a lot of the other options in there are rough. Or if you're trying to go for Exceptional via the Platinum one, it's also going to be rough. And, honestly, this is not really a problem of the Tengu by itself, but more of a developer choice. But if you'll recall, they gave this gun away for free in a code. In fact, that code might still be valid. I don't remember which one, but it was given away for free. The problem is, code weapons are generally used by new players. Giving a new player one of the most unreliable guns in the entire game, that is extremely punishing to use if you do not have the raw skill to position super effectively with it, is not the right move. I honestly don't know why they gave away the Tengu when they could have given away something like the NSPDW. Sure, it's still not that good, but it's a hell of a lot better than this thing. So, my complaints with this gun aside, I do want to talk a little bit here about what I think could be done to improve this gun. So, normally, of course, I just tell you, this gun is good or bad, here's why, blah. But I've kind of tried a couple times on the explanations of bad guns, like what I think could be done to improve them. And I actually think the Tengu is a relatively simple fix. Given that it uses pellet spread like a shotgun, why don't they give this thing Smart Choke? This gun is already incentivized to be an aim-down sight submachine gun. So, realistically, the penalty for the hipfire pellet spread isn't that big of a deal. And 0.5 better pellet spread might do a lot for it when aiming down sights. Obviously, it wouldn't be a huge game changer, but it would move the gun in the right direction and give it a little bit more of a niche as an aim-down sight submachine gun. Of course, the other option that they could also do in conjunction would be to just remove the damage fall-off altogether. And the reason I think this would probably make the gun at least a little bit better is because, you know, on top of the fact that you're already starting to miss pellets at range, your damage can drop down to 36. Assuming all 4 pellets land, that's still not putting you in very good damage. So, you know, if they got rid of damage drop-off on this gun, for example, you would always hit for 50, or rather your pellets would always hit for 50, which make the gun at least a little bit more reliable at longer ranges. I'm not saying it needs to be completely turned into a ranged submachine gun. I'm saying this gun needs to be more reliable, to be an actually good option worth using. Because on paper, its stats are fine. And as a design concept, I'll give them credit. It is pretty interesting. Its unreliability is what kills this gun. So, with the option of a smart choke and no damage fall off, it might be given that push it needs to be just a little bit more reliable and just a little bit better of a general option. Of course, this could be the most brain-dead take you've ever heard, but, I think it would probably help out the Tengu in quite a lot of ways. At least, that's my opinion. Because, as it stands, it's just not that reliable. That, or even, I would say, take away the hybrid laser altogether. And just really focus the gun into being aimed down sights. Because even with the laser, it's not competitive as a hip-fire weapon. Given that you need all your pellets to land and the rate of fire is so low that you get punished so hard when you miss anyway, hip-firing is basically suicide with this gun. But in its current state, unless you absolutely have to grind it for a directive, I cannot recommend using the Tengu. It is just simply too unreliable and not enjoyable to use. It's not particularly good, and it's not particularly fun to use. And, that kills it. That puts it dead in the water. Unfortunately, that's just how it is, It's good within, 10 meters, but let's face it, even as an infiltrator where you can pick your engagements, not a whole lot of fights in this game will take place below 10 meters, and you won't be able to always force them there. At least with other submachine guns, you can stretch them out to 20, 30 meters. But you just can't do that with the Tengu because you don't have the accuracy. In fact, I probably could have downed that medic if my pellets had just been a little bit more accurate. A smart choke there probably would have saved my life and given me an extra kill. But it's just unreliable. And, because of that, it's just not a fun weapon to use. It is not a good weapon. Ultimately, if you want a pellet-based SMG to have a little bit of fun with, pick a Kappa. Sure, it's A7, and that means it's filtered in the black market directive, but as an actual gun, it is way more fun to use than this thing. Because the Kappa takes all the bad traits about the Tengu and makes them better, albeit in slightly different ways, by converting its damage model and rate of fire. But still, for a pellet-based SMG, the Kappa is way more enjoyable than this thing. Which leaves the Tengu as just this weird little niche that just doesn't serve a purpose gameplay-wise. Because, yeah, sure, it's 500 at 200, or 513 at 200 if we're getting pedantic. But with the unreliability, your other submachine guns will probably kill faster anyway. Your Punisher will kill faster. Your Cyclone will kill faster. Your Blitz will kill faster. Your Arm, etc. So, it's just... it's not a good gun. I genuinely cannot recommend it to anyone in its current state. I can't even recommend it to new players, even though it was a free giveaway. That's how junk it is. It is a terrible freebie. Someone just followed me on Twitch, and that notification just came through, and that's going to show up in the recording, and that is honestly rather amusing. Unless I accidentally clicked the start streaming button. Okay, I did. Never mind. Well, that's going to be odd in the video. Alright. Someone evidently must have just followed me on Twitch or something. Okay, well. I'm sorry if that catches you off guard. Nonetheless, the Tengu, it's just not good. There's not really much more to say on it. Give it a smart choke and it would probably be better. Or give it no damage drop-off and it would probably be better. Maybe introduce a unique ammo option, because, for example, if you take the Horizon, the VS Carbine fires 3 pellets, but you can take the ammunition for it that converts it to 2 pellets, but raises the damage. Why not have something like that available to the Tengu? Hell, why not say there's an ammunition conversion that cuts it to 2 pellets that each do 100 damage? You're not changing the overall damage model on the weapon, but you'd be making it more reliable and better. Honestly, the problem with that, though, would be that it would completely outshine the regular Tengu, but, you know, obviously they could balance it as such, but why not give it that option? Because the only other pellet spread, like, weapons in the game are the Horizon, which is on DS, so, you know, and it's a Carbine. The Kappa, which is an A7 weapon, and the Schrodinger, which is an NSO-directed weapon that is awful. Why not at least make the Tengu have something going for it? Make it at least a little interesting. A little fun to play, maybe, even. I don't know. I don't know. It's just, it's not a gun I can recommend in good faith right now. And, let's be real, it's probably not going to get changed or buffed, so unfortunately it's probably going to remain in this state. Or if it does, let's face it, it'll probably be like 4 years from now. So, hell, this video probably won't even be outdated. So. Oh god, do I want to keep using this damned thing for another 3 minutes just to finish off the alert? No, I'm gonna call it here. I'm gonna stay in the game myself because I want that 20-minute alert reward, but I can't bring myself to use this thing anymore. That's how bad it is. I use a lot of shitty guns in this game. This thing is really far up there. This thing is almost Schrodinger level bad. It's so unreliable, man. I genuinely cannot recommend it. It's just, don't bother. Spend your certs on a Punisher, a PDW, one of your ES SMGs instead, or save your A7 to get the Kappa if you really want a pellet-based SMG. That thing is heaps more fun than this thing. So, it's just, it's not a good weapon. So, thank you all, and I will see you tomorrow. Bye.